Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. We are so excited to have Joseph Werner here joining us today from beautiful Melbourne, Florida, as the owner and family therapist at Child and Family Consultants. He's here again today to talk more about the work him and his team do to help so many families, young adults, children, adults, in so many different ways. So welcome back today. How are you?
Hi. Hello, Jill. How are you?
I'm
Getting ready
doing
for the
well.
holidays?
I am. Still have to do lots of wrapping, but yeah, basically I'm good. Thank you. And yourself?
You're up. Good. Trying to enjoy the holiday spirits and not work too much and spend time with family and friends.
Exactly. Same here. Absolutely. Well,
Right.
thank you for joining us again. For new time listeners, it's childandfamilyconsultants.com. Tell us a little bit about your company, if you don't mind.
Oh, I'd love to. So Child and Family Consultants has been in Melbourne, Florida, which is in East Central Florida. We've been here for over 30 years, and
Wow.
we've got a great reputation with medical professionals and educators and families in the Brevard County area. We also see families that are from west of us in Orange County, the Orlando area, and families that are south of us in Indian River County, and families that come from northern Florida too, as far as Daytona. So we've got a very wide and diverse group of families and children that come to our office and let us enter their lives so that we can try to help them with their children and help them develop their skills and their functioning.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for being here. How many years in business?
Well, Child and Family Consultants has been here for over 30 years now, and we work with kids from infancy all the way through young adulthood. And quite a few of our kids and families are trying to deal with autism, and autism, of course, is a spectrum of abilities and disabilities, and so we have a nice expertise in that. And also another role that I have is the director of a nonprofit group called the Brevard Autism Coalition. And the nonprofit group also tries to bring together medical professionals and educators and service providers with families and individuals dealing with autism. And we try to not only provide services and education, but we try to support each other. The Center for Disease and Control, CDC, has indicated that as many as 1 in 36 8-year-olds
Wow.
now has a diagnosis of autism, which, if you think about that, that's an enormous amount of children. And
is it because we're more aware of it and we're diagnosing more, or is it because it really has become something that's, from childhood? I never heard of anyone that was autistic. So is it always been here? Have we always been, but we never knew how to describe it? Or is it something that's new that's coming out of, for whatever reason, genetics or environment, whatever people say? Just curious, back in the day, what did people say about this?
Well, that's a fascinating question, and we could spend the next 2 hours, and
Oh, okay.
I could fill you in on all the details about that. But the quick summary is that we're really not sure. We know that part of the reason that so many children and even older adults now are being diagnosed with autism is because we have expanded the diagnostic criteria because we understand so much more about autism. And also, pediatricians and family doctors and families are more aware of it. So, in a sense, we are looking for signs that a child or even a teenager or an adult may have autism. So that contributes too. But still, I'm not sure that completely helps us understand why the number has grown so greatly. And so there's lots of research out there trying to determine, how many of the factors related to autism might be related to genetics, or how many is there some type of an environmental influence might be encouraging this increase in diagnosis too. We know that a lot of the children and families who have someone with a diagnosis of autism, there is a genetic component.
Okay.
The tricky part is, though, that it's not one particular gene or even a couple of genes there's probably maybe 100 different genes that are involved in leading to this diagnosis, which makes it very hard to um, filter down to be able to determine with 100% certainty how much of it is genetic. But we know there's a strong genetic component.
Got it. Well, thank you for answering that.
You're
And let's
welcome.
continue because I know the focus of today is with families in autism. Could you
Yes,
share?
sure. And one of the groups that I'd like to talk about today, because to some degree it's one of the more underserved groups, is young adults who have a diagnosis of autism. Um, we've all worked really hard over the past 30 years trying to make sure that young children receive early intervention services and are diagnosed as early as possible. But of course, when you have a big increase in the number of children who have a diagnosis of autism, eventually those kids are going to get older. And right now, we're faced with a situation where every year, more and more children who have become
Mm-hmm.
adolescents or graduating from high school, and a lot of times kids can receive services through about age 21 or 22 through their public school system. The difficulty is that once the kids start getting picked up by their school buses and school ends, and they get to be 22, 23, there really are very few services available for these young adults. So oftentimes you have young adults who have some capabilities, but there's very high rates of unemployment or underemployment. Um, there's low participation in educational opportunities after high school. A lot of young adults with autism continue to live with family members, even though they might like to be able to live more on their own. And oftentimes there's limited opportunities in communities um, for young adults to go out and have good social experiences.
Mm-hmm.
For
Wow.
instance, in our area of Melbourne, Florida, it's a beautiful area, and we do have a pretty nice public transportation system. However, the public transportation system is really limited. So
Mm-hmm.
if you don't know how to drive, you're really limited into where and how far away you can go from your home. And there's lots of folks who have autism who, for one reason or another, driving a car isn't something that they're able to do. There's plenty of people with autism who can drive cars, of course,
Mm-hmm.
but there's also definitely a group who driving a car isn't really an option.
Wow.
Um, and over the past few years, we've seen a real big increase at child and family consultants in young adults between 22 and 30 who are trying to be independent, who want some social connections, who might like to have some type of a job, but they don't have a lot of access to those typical things that all young adults are sort of
Mm-hmm.
interested in. And then you have another interesting component too that happens is that the parents or the caregivers of these young adults oftentimes have a bit of a conundrum because they understand that their young adult wants to be independent and might want to be out on their own. However, the parents oftentimes feel like,
Mm-hmm.
my son or daughter doesn't really have maybe all of the skills they would like to see in
Mm-hmm.
their son or daughter in terms of are they really capable of going out and being there on their own? Could they possibly be get taken advantage of if they're out on their own? How are they going to manage the dating issues and
Hmm.
how are they going to be able to manage the issues about having a budget and paying the bills and so forth and so on? So oftentimes we wind up working not only with the young adult themselves, but we really have to work with the parents and try to
Mm-hmm.
help them understand how do we find some common ground here so that the parents fears and concerns
Yeah.
are recognized, but at the same time we have to recognize the hopes and the dreams of their young adults and try to help both the parents and caregivers and the young adults figure out a way, what's the right balance, or how do we get to the point where maybe the young adult can be more self-reliant. And that's a tricky question for a lot of young adults and their families.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you for reminding us of this and
Yeah,
having this conversation. For those listeners out there, would you mind just sharing your contact information before we continue?
sure, I'd love to. So, Child and Family Consultants, our phone number is area code 321-768-6800. And our email address is childandfamily@cfl.rr.com. And that's all spelled out, CHILDANDFAMILY at cfl.rr.com. And we'd love to be able to hear from you. And also we take questions.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone just has a question regarding their son or daughter who might have autism or any other um, developmental disability or any mental health issue, we certainly have questions. People call all the time, and we try to help them as best we can.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Let's continue the conversation. What else did you want to share? I know we're also supposed to have a guest today, but I'm not sure that's going to happen, right? Little bit
Right.
of an issue.
Yeah, she ran into some difficulties making it here today. That Christmas traffic and all of the Christmas hubbub is hard to get through sometimes.
It sure is. And
Yeah.
what is her specialty? What were we going to discuss with her as well?
So my friend, her name is Jackie Yerby, and
Okay.
she is the head of another nonprofit called Angels Bridging Gaps. And Angels
Okay.
Bridging Gaps is part of the Brevard Autism Coalition. And Jackie's specialty is really running a program that she tries to do job training skills for young adults who have autism, and she tries to do programs to help them get out into the community. So, for example, her group Angels Bridging Gaps, as well as the Brevard Autism Coalition, we have social skills groups for or young adults with autism, and they will meet at least once a month. And
Mm-hmm.
they'll go out to a local restaurant, or maybe the group will decide to go to a museum or the beach together, something like that. But a nice little safe place for people to meet and to make friends. And we all know how hard it is sometimes for adults to make friends. But if you have autism, sometimes that can be even a little bit
Mm-hmm.
harder, because part of the diagnosis, of course, for someone who does have autism is that understanding social cues and social conversation, maybe even social anxiety, those things tend to be a little bit more common than the general
Mm-hmm.
population. And, that just makes connecting with people and having friendships even a little bit tougher. So by setting up some social skills situations,
Yep.
we have opportunities for these young adults to meet in places that young adults would meet, and everybody has some fun and tries to have some conversation and make friendships. And then, as I was saying before, another nice thing that my friend Jackie does is that she tries to develop the work skills in young adults with autism. So she has some of them work on a process of delivering some newsletters regarding
Mm-hmm.
autism around Brevard County.
Okay.
Some of them help set some of the advertising and the printing for it. She also brings some of the young adults in, and they work on other skills related to how do you organize the worksheets and a workspace, and ability to assemble things, and to be able to work on basic social skills. One of the reasons why some folks with autism have a hard time um, being able to stay at a job is because they sometimes make mistakes
Yeah.
with the social connections. They might say the wrong thing at the wrong time to a staff member who is, in the lunchroom, or they might have a little bit of difficulty taking some feedback from a
Mm-hmm.
boss. And sometimes it's the social things which really trip them up more than their ability to do a particular job. So Jackie does a great job trying to work on this ability of the young adults to get some pre-vocational skills, as well as trying to help them have social opportunities. Another project that Jackie and I are working on too is we're trying to develop something that's kind of like an Uber system for young adults, so that they would be able to get rides, whether they are going to a doctor's office or a therapy appointment or a job or going out to movies with friends, because so many of our young adults don't have the opportunity to drive themselves. We're trying to develop an Uber system where the drivers are familiar and comfortable working with people who have disabilities, who might have a little bit of difficulty with speaking and language, for example, but they'd be comfortable being to taking them in as passengers, and the parents and young adults themselves would also feel safe knowing that they've got drivers who understand sort of where they're coming from. And this Uber system would be a nice way to provide safe transportation around Brevard County. Um, at one point last year, my group, the Brevard Autism Coalition, was also working with a local university, Florida Institute of Technology, and they are working on a grant to try to develop driverless cars. Basically, the same thing, to provide transportation to people with different disabilities, so that they have access to all of the great things that are in the community of Brevard County, as well as making appointments at doctor's offices or going shopping, that type of thing. So we've got a wide variety of things we're trying to work on. And another thing that we're trying to do too is trying to find ways of working with local politicians and real estate people, because what we'd really like to see happen too is there'd be a lot more opportunities for housing for young adults with disabilities. Um, I mean, housing is difficult for all kinds of groups these days, between the cost of rent and how hard it is to live by yourself sometimes. And so we're really hoping to, down the line, make enough connections so that we can get more houses built and maybe communities built and organized, so that people, young adults with disabilities and their families, can be able to feel like there's some safe and affordable housing, so that the young adults get a chance to feel like they can live self-reliant and at least semi-independent, if not fully independent, lives, just like any other young adult would like to do.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. All right. And the amount of impact, and I always like hearing stories about the people that you work with, and I wish they were here to explain themselves, but do you want to share any families that you're working with without using their names, but like, yeah, the type of compassion, support, and yeah, that you provide?
Well, we've got quite a few young adults that we've worked with through the years, for example, that have been able to pick up skills so they can work at a local supermarket chain called Publix.
Mm.
And then they're all doing very well there. We had another really interesting case with a young lady who had developed a boyfriend relationship, but it was over the internet, and it just so happened that this boyfriend lived in Australia, and you can imagine the concerns about the part of her parents when they found out she was had an internet relationship with a young man with autism in Australia. Well, of course, we were all a little concerned about that, but working with her and working with the parents, and also contacting this young man and his family in Australia, it turned out that this was a legitimate connection. And eventually, the young man flew all the way over here
Wow.
to Florida, and he met the young lady, and they were able to do some dating. And we worked with the parents quite a bit to help them feel more comfortable with the whole situation, and help with some chaperoning, and so forth. And it turned out things worked out really well. And eventually, the
Wow.
young woman took a trip to Australia and met the young man and his family. And so there are a lot of real success stories here. It just takes a lot of time and energy and to help make all of these things work out. And as sort of a side issue, one of the things that we are also having in this spring, we're putting together a seminar where we're going to bring young adults and their parents and caregivers together. And for 3 hours, we're going to have one speaker speak about to the young adults about relationships and sexuality. And in this concurrent group, we'll have another speaker talking to the parents about relationships and sexuality. And then our afternoon program, we'll bring the parents and the young adults together to share what they talked about in the morning. And again, trying to make connections and to deal with issues that are sometimes sensitive, sometimes hard to talk to your parents about, but certainly parents and young adults are all will have interest and concerns about those issues about relationships and what makes a good relationship and how do you have a good relationship. And I mean, that's, again, often enough, that's hard enough for typical people to figure out. But when you have and or dealing with a disability like autism, it kind of makes it a little bit trickier. But these types of seminars help to open doors and lead to conversations and get a chance for people to understand each other, where they're coming from. They help bring communication about, and we feel that it's a real an asset to the community to begin bringing these issues up and talking about them, and just trying to help families figure out how to manage it and cope with it, and keep that communication going.
Well, we appreciate you being here, joining us, and want to wish you a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and what do you have planned for the family coming up?
Well, it's going to be a nice, just a nice time to spend resting and doing some games and activities. And I always like to do, I'm in Melbourne, we're pretty close to the beach, so I always like doing a little run on the beach on Christmas morning as the sun's coming up and you got your feet on the sand and surf there, and makes for a nice beginning of the holiday.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. Pleasure to have you here, and looking
You're
forward
welcome.
to the next time we connect. Have a great day.
Yes,
thanks again.
You too.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.